Hi, and welcome to AzureDirect.com. Today we're going to be using Power Automate to actually create a flow that is going to change the way you look at doing business today. So the first step is when we go into Office 365, we're going to select Power Automate. Okay, and when we get into Power Automate, what I really love about Power Automate is it really helps us to understand how to free up some time. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to create a flow, okay, that's going to start an approval when a file is added to a SharePoint folder. So we go over here to the left-hand side where it says Create. We're going to push Create. Okay, now we could do any one of these from blank, but what we're going to do is we're going to start with a template, and the very first one, the third one over, is start an approval when a file is added to SharePoint. So let's go ahead and click on that. Now, what we're going to be doing here, and I'm going to go ahead and increase the font so you can understand a little bit better on this actual screen here, is understand the flow. We need to connect it to something. So the flow is going to be connected to all the Office 365 users. Make sure there's a checkbox there. We're going to enable the approvals application inside of Power Automate. Then we're going to say that, hey, we want to connect it to all of Microsoft Teams that are inside of the environment. Now I'm using my personal credentials here. This is my sandbox environment. Next, we want to make sure the permissions are Office 365 for Outlook, so we can get into Outlook and then also into SharePoint, because we're going to be monitoring this SharePoint folder. Okay, now as you can see here, you might want to make sure that all 5 boxes are checked. If you have a fixed connection, you'll click on that and then you'll end up federating on the left hand side. So when all of those are checked, we're going to go ahead and push continue. Now the beauty of this here is it's going to ask us, okay, well, what SharePoint site are we going to monitor? Now what we're trying to do here is basically say, hey, we have a documents folder that we want to make sure that we're monitoring who's putting stuff in there and also getting approvals from this, right? So we're going to click on the downward arrow, we call it the downward chevron, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this SharePoint site called Sales Teams. I'm going to click on Sales Teams, and that's the one that's going to monitor. The next drop down is going to ask us what folder are we going to monitor. So we're going to click on Documents right there. All right, now we got Documents. Now the next one is going to ask you, do you want to monitor specific folders that are inside the Documents folder? But we're not going to, because what we want to do is make sure we monitor all documents that are being stored in the site and approve them whether we like them or not. So we'll leave that there. And then now we have to select who are the approvers. So I'm going to just type in a little bit of my credentials, Sherman Kranzer, info@AzureDirect. And maybe I want to give it to somebody else as well. So I'll give him another email address. I'll do CIE2. Okay, so CIE2 is getting some approvals. And then I'm going to go ahead and push create. It's very simple. So now when we push create, it's going to actually create the flow and publish the flow and actually put this in here. Uh-oh, there is a problem with the flow checker. So let's go over to our flow checker. This is actually pretty good. And there's a problem with the flows trigger. Okay, it hasn't been successfully triggered in the last 6 to 28 days. No problem. Well, thanks for letting us know. Okay, so now we have in here, the one thing I want to show you really quickly is understanding what has actually been done in the background. So we're going to click on Edit. And what this is going to show us is the actual tree that's been created. Now this is a low-code, no-code environment, so you don't actually have to know how to get these in here. However, you can add triggers, such as, well, let me explain this for you too. So when a file is created, right, it's going to get your profile, then it's going to create an approval and send 2 different notifications, one over to our email and one over to our Microsoft Teams, and wait for something else that's going on here. But let me just show you, I'm going to add a condition to this, because I wanted to do one more thing. We're going to add a flow, we're going to add an action, right? Then I'm going to scroll down here, and when we do this, I'm going to add an email. Okay, it's going to send a notification email. It's another one, right? And it could be to info, right? info@AzureDirect, no problem. Subject is test email notification that someone triggered the flow, right? Okay, no problem. And then we can put in here disregard the message. Okay, perfect. Okay, no problem. And then now that's done, we're going to go quickly and push save. All right, so now that we've done this, let's go ahead and trigger this. I'm going to go back over to all apps that are here, and I'm going to open up SharePoint. So my SharePoint, I'm clicking on SharePoint. And when I click on SharePoint, I'm going to go to that site. Remember, we want to monitor this sales team site that's in SharePoint. So we'll click into the site. And as you notice, inside of the site, you have over here Documents. And this is where the folder that we actually are monitoring. So let's go ahead and click on Documents. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually create a new document. Okay, so I'm going to create a new, I'm going to go to Word document, right? So we're going to trigger this by creating a new Word document. And in here, we're going to put test RSG Power Platform form trigger event, right? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're just creating a simple document here. And then, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call this, I'm going to change this from document 15 to trigger document for Power Automate tutorial. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Now, we're going to make sure that it's saved. We're going to give it a few more seconds. We're going to type in a couple more things here just to make sure that we got this. And now it's actually been saved. Perfect. Now, what we can go ahead and do is we can go click back over to the sales team, and we can see if the trigger document has actually been updated into here. So we'll scroll down here. Okay. And we're looking for what has just been inputted, right? So test document, test, okay, trigger document, there it is. See, trigger document, perfect, awesome. Now let's go see when our notifications happen. So there's two notifications that will happen. One is in Outlook, so I'm gonna open up Microsoft Outlook online. And if I take a look at this, what I'm gonna have in here is I'm gonna have a trigger that's actually gonna, so don't show this again, okay. And there's a final notice, okay, let me go back over to focused, okay. And as you can see here, we have a trigger that's actually come, and we actually have approvals. Okay, so this is that's one thing there. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and click over to Microsoft Teams, and Teams is going to load. And when Teams loads, and this is what's really awesome about this, is we created an actual approval process inside of Microsoft Teams. So it's actually going to send us an actual approval. So as it's updating, it says stay in touch and desktop notifications. Now look at this. We just had the power of sent us a request. Let's go over to our Teams there, and what's going to happen here is we're actually getting the approval. See, look at that, trigger document for Power Automate tutorial. Awesome. So we can go ahead and approve it, right? Just directly from here. So one of the really coolest features that we can actually do. And then we have final status approved. But let me go ahead and just check really quick back to our Outlook, and look at this. In here, yes, we can approve it. We've already done the approval here, but also ancillary email notice. It says disregard. If you want to subscribe to this email, please use this form. Boom. That is